That's one of the biggest questions in education, design education right now. And I don't have an answer to that yet.
We hear this all the time. It's not about the destination, but it's about the journey. And I think you're still on that journey, and you're
Very much, yeah.
quite happy to be on that journey.
So I grew up pretty much knowing that I cannot really make a living from art, or I should not. I should learn something proper.
But, I mean, at the end, who told you?
The teacher said to me, "No, you're not. You're an artist, Alex. You're an artist." And I was so, "No, I'm not an artist. I'm a design freelancer," or
It should be on your terms and your decisions, and building a personal brand or an identity around what you believe in is your own journey.
But eventually I realized, okay, art is deep in my veins, and there's nothing wrong with it.
As designers, we struggle with who we are constantly as creatives. We want to work and do the things that we love to do, but we're often faced with the challenges of working commercially, working for clients, and sometimes doing the things that we don't want to do. In this video, I sit down and talk with Alexander Meinhardt, who has gone full force and challenged that. He has tried to reinvent himself as an artist, coming from design, and also creating the hub that is Crunch Time, his little safe space to do really, really cool and artistically creative things. I talk about his personal journey and his personal brand and the struggles that he's had to get to where he is today. So join me in this video as I pick Alex's brains and try to understand the decisions that he's made to get to where he is today as an artist, as a creative, as a producer, and as a musician.
Am I an artist or not? Or it's always a way to shortcut the conversation a little bit. Once you have to introduce yourself, what are you? Okay, I'm an artist. Then it's a bit easier to say that.
Hello, hello.
Hello again.
Alex.
Thanks for the invite, Paul.
Oh, absolutely. Welcome back to the channel. It's awesome to have you back here.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure having you in the studio.
Always nice to chat.
We always have great chats off camera, and sometimes we get the chance to put them on camera. And recently we were talking about a pretty interesting topic that I thought we could go a little bit deeper into, and I suppose a bit more about your journey as well as an artist, a creative, a designer, a man who kind of crosses lots of different boundaries and lots of different fields, and your kind of journey of discovery, I suppose, like how you've actually got to where you've kind of ended up today, and kind of finding your personal brand along the way. And I thought that would be a good place to begin the conversation.
So, first of all, up until recently, I wouldn't consider myself that much of an artist.
Mm-hmm.
That has changed in recent years, but for the majority of my life, I wouldn't consider myself an artist at all. The way I grew up was not very artistic in the first place. So in my family, so my father and mother, they have studied mathematics, So they're basically scientists. Like pretty much everybody in my family is more or less scientist. They then ended up working in IT. For instance, my father would supervise a team of back-end developers until he eventually retired. And yes, I was exposed to art, to music, of course, a lot. And we would, as a family, appreciate art, but it wasn't really part of our, let's say, of the core of the family. So there was, I guess, not really much interest in the workflows and the ethics of artistry, just from a more, let's say, entertainment point of view. And so I grew up pretty much knowing that I cannot really make a living from art, or I should not. I should learn something proper.
But, I mean, at the end, who told you? Who was the one who told you this? I think this is something that we discussed as well.
Yeah, it's a good question.
Really interesting because, like, is it society? Is it family pressure? Is it peer pressure? Or is it the people that at that point you're surrounding yourself with who are basically saying this is not the path for you to follow?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both. It's family and also society. I think maybe even a German thing, not too sure, but the value of art is probably, or of design as well, is probably different than in other countries. Up until this day, I'm really struggling with introducing myself to somebody as an artist. I'm refusing to do this, and prefer to speak about, okay, I'm a designer, and then everybody's like, oh, okay, you're a designer. But speaking of myself as an artist feels still strange and different to me, and then that is because of society pressure, I guess. And I don't really remember if there was any, let's say, proclamation from my family side. I'm not too sure, but there was no knowledge, no know-how in terms of artistry at all. So whatever I did, I had to get from somewhere else. There's one person in my family, my older cousin Marian. Shout out Marian. He would encourage me into doing artistic stuff because he's a cartoonist and illustrator, doing graphic novels and things like that. And he would see me drawing, and then he would support me and encourage me to do more drawing at the age of, I don't know, 8, 9, 10. So he was probably the one influence from a family point of view in terms of artistry. But other than that, it was, all about doing something practical, functional, structure.
I don't know if that's necessarily a German thing. I think that's also like, it's a situational thing. So if we're talking about Germany, then Germany from your perspective, but I also think it's a generational thing as well.
Could be, yes.
I grew up in the UK, and I think in the UK the arts are very much celebrated, around it from a very young age. Galleries are free, they're subsidized by the government. There's also the Prince of Wales Trust as well to help creatives, artists, designers to kind of build a career around art. So all this kind of stuff was there for us, and also at school as well. I went to a school that specialized in art and also in music from a very young age, so I was exposed to that.
And if I may ask, is it because of your parents noticing that you are talented in that, and then they send you there?
Or I mean, I asked
wow,
if I could go there, and
at
they
what
said
age?
Yes. But I mean, I always knew from when I was a little kid, I said I wanted to be an artist.
Okay.
So this is like from the age of like 6. I
That's
would sit and I would draw and I would paint and I'd draw comics and cartoons.
Yeah.
And my understanding of what an artist was that I could continue to do this. This was something that allowed me to kind of disappear into my own world and create things, create these experiences through my own kind of imagination, through art. I did this more so than reading, to be honest. I was always lost in paper and pencils. So I was always saying to my parents, look, I want to be an artist. not really knowing what that was. And I continue to say that right up until maybe I was 18 or 19. So from a very young age, I was kind of encouraged to do it to an extent, although I did have a backlash, like from some of my kind of family saying, look, you should follow a more sensible, career path, even though you're
More
a kid.
sensible, yeah.
That's going to, create stability and, a path that they could understand, right? They were just looking out for me. So from a young age, I was kind of I was able to go to a school which was more focused on art. But even then, the point is that I was still, even in a situation like that, I still had the same kind of issues that you had, where art is not really a path to go down.
Yeah, at least that's what I thought. And I think it's because of the family, my whole family probably thought that. And the difference here is I never thought of myself as an artist at a young age. Even today, I wouldn't say that's a career path or a life goal or something. It just came naturally, I think, but it came also against the odds somehow.
Yeah. I think the difference here in our paths, where our paths kind of went in a different direction, was I found design and realized actually I want to be a designer, not an artist. So I never went back and questioned, it was always like, my calling actually was, I had the skill to be creative, and design was where I wanted to put my creativity. And the artistry behind it just became something that was more fulfilling as a passion, somewhat.
True. But that's interesting to know. Moving onwards for me, it was like I just stumbled across different techniques and different things, and I would try them, and some of them I never really trained or became good at. At a certain point, I did writing novels with a friend of mine who was like a bookworm, so we would write stuff, detective novels, something like that. But that faded out pretty soon, and then it became letters and typography and graffiti. So that's what I did for a lot of time at my younger age. And then music came on, or music was always there, and then the whole drawing and graffiti thing kind of faded out as well. But at all of those times, I would never thought of doing that for a living or as a profession. And everybody around me would tell me, oh, you have to go to advertising, Alex. You have to go to an advertising agency because this is what you are, this is what you have to do. And I thought, okay, then let's do that. And what I regret is that I never really studied arts. I would have loved to study arts, like contemporary art or something like that. That would be very, very cool. I never did. Yeah. I ended up studying marketing. Yeah, so very commercial, a very commercial approach, which is fine and which helps me to do what I do today as well. But I missed out, I think, on a lot of interesting things that could have happened in a kind of arts uni, right?
Yeah, I mean, I went to art university, so I experienced that. So I was in a university with like multidisciplinary people, so sculptors, fine artists, painters, also people who were into also doing architectural drawings as well, and graphic design as well. So you're constantly around all these different people, and my majors. Amazing, I didn't realize how amazing it was until I started to talk about it, later on in life. I just thought that was a very normal thing, but now I live in a different country. I also see that the university and the educational system is so very, very different. So I feel very fortunate. I think that's also geared me towards having this more storytelling approach to creativity in my design, is because when I was studying fine art, you had to have like a reason for why you were doing things. Otherwise, it had no purpose. So you needed to create some kind of story around what you were doing to explain to people, okay, this is this and it has this value. And if you can tell a good story, then it, you know, it has a reason for being. And that's continued in my, you know, like up until today, always to try and find an anchor point, a justification, an idea for where something comes from.
That's super valuable, and I only learned that later on in life.
Yeah,
like the power of storytelling, for instance, and also, you know, all the theory that is behind arts. I only learned that later in life, and I struggled a lot with these kind of things until, of course, I reached a certain age or a certain experience level, and then it was all right. But
what would you say to your, I suppose, your younger self, like, or as a reflection of your younger self within the people that, you know, are coming up at the moment today? Because I know that you're also doing some teaching as well, so you get the chance to maybe be retrospective. I think that's super valuable as well, to be able to share some of those experiences that you're talking about right now. You know, people who don't have that exposure and kind of got to where they've got to, what kind of, how do you steer them? What kind of advice do you give them? Or is it advice? I don't know. How do you work with the younger people who are possibly looking to you for answers?
I think that really depends on the person. Some of them, they already, just like you, they already know what they want to become and what they are good at. So they would need different advice. But the ones that are struggling with finding their path, I would, of course, try to encourage them to follow their passion. If they would be, you know, good at photography, I would always encourage them to get deeper into photography and, you know, try to become better at, try out different techniques, and don't let themselves be told that they are, you know, should do something else just because it might not be the most, you know, make a living kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
I suppose that also comes kind of like back round, the circle kind of comes back a bit around the, because I'd like to ask you, at what point did you feel that there was the validation there that you were able to call, because you do call yourself an artist today, right? And you still say
for
you're a little bit uncomfortable.
now, I would say, yes.
Still not completely comfortable with it, but you are way more comfortable with, okay, I'm Alex, the artist, and that's how we can start the conversation. You also, I know you wear multiple hats as well, like within different kind of industries, because you have a lot of different things that you are really interested in and that you're very good at as well. But my point is, like with the validation side, was there a point where you just decided, or is there somebody else, you know, that you were looking to for them to recognize you as the artist, that you could say, right, now I'm this person that I thought I could become?
Yeah, to be honest, I never been validated so far by anybody as an artist. As a designer, maybe yes, there's, you know, LinkedIn recommendations or something like that, or client feedback, but there wasn't any validation towards me as an artist yet. I remember there was a point when I got self-employed around 5-6 years ago, where I went to that teaching to, you know, become a freelancer, and it was about positioning yourself as a brand.
Yeah.
And we would all have to tell the teacher what we are actually doing, what we are trying to achieve, and so on. And I did all of that, and the teacher said to me, "No, you're not. You're an artist, Alex. You're an artist." And I was so, "No, I'm not an artist. I'm a design freelancer," or, you know. But eventually I realized, okay, art is deep in my veins, and there's nothing wrong with it. It's just, it's inside me, but it's also not 100% everything I do. It's maybe half of it. Yeah, I am an artist, I would say today, but there's many other things, many other hats I'm wearing that are not necessarily artistic. Yeah. Meaning business, teaching, you know, doing conceptual work, strategy, stuff like that, running a studio. So
Yeah, I mean,
I'm still struggling, as you can see. Am I an artist or not? Or it's always a way to shortcut the conversation a little bit. Once you have to introduce yourself, what are you? Okay, I'm an artist. Then it's a bit easier to say that today, but it's.
I think also the point that I want to kind of get out of you or see, because it's also my perspective, is that you don't need anybody else's validation, basically, to kind of identify with something. You don't need other people. I think we live our entirety of our lives with this kind of imposter syndrome anyway, and I think it should be embraced. Like, it's not something to kind of hide away from. Nobody's got it figured out. Everyone's kind of making up as they go along every single day, no matter what social media or their brand presence or what they do tell you. They're still struggling. They're still feeling insecure with what they're doing, but they're maybe just hiding it a lot better. And I remember I told you about this story about a friend of mine who wanted to become a photographer, and he was making the transition from a designer to a photographer, and he started getting freelance gigs. He started doing more photography work and stuff. But he kept saying to me, "Look, I'm not a photographer. I'm not a photographer." And I said, "But at what point, you want to become a photographer? At what point will you feel validated? Are you waiting for somebody to send a business card through the post that has your name, photographer, on it, and then finally you can tell the world you're a photographer?" It's about mindset and purpose, and you have to look inward to find that, and it's always going to be uncomfortable. And I think that's also really the advice that I would give, like, other people coming through as well. And I think it's also it's something that you're also going through as well. I don't think waiting for anybody else to kind of give you the nod that you should be this or shouldn't be this is worth spending any time waiting for, because it's never going to come.
But maybe sometimes it still needs somebody to extract it from, especially from some younger students. I see that they don't even realize themselves what they are, what their natural skill is. And sometimes it needs somebody from the outside to tell them and let them know, hey, you're actually very good at illustration. Why not, just focus on that? And
yeah, but I mean, it depends. It's like, I think that's where institutional education comes into play in a good way, because you socializing and surrounding yourself with people who are on the same journey and finding your way there is a very interesting sphere to be in, rather than putting things on the internet and waiting for people to like them,
True.
Because that's often how you try and feel like you have worth or value, is waiting for somebody to click and say, yep, like
nowadays.
it. Yeah, nowadays.
I'm fortunate to have, to not grown up into this, because nowadays I think that's a real struggle for people. If they are good at something, but they don't have the following for some reason, then they might think about themselves they're not good at it at all, right? And that's a problem. And this is something we didn't have once we were growing up, right? So I'm fortunate that it was easier, a little bit easier than, because nowadays you have to measure yourself against the follower count. And that's pretty much impossible coming up as a young creative to go against these massive other accounts that basically do everything you would ever imagine to do in your life, but better already. And then every minute of your day, if that makes sense. So, that's tough.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think back in the day, I used to like seize or seek inspiration through conversation and maybe a beer at the pub, trying to figure out life and try and visualize it with friends, or with like-minded people. But today, all I need to do is click in the browser or turn my computer on, and by default, I'm bombarded with the most amazing work, and now AI generated, which you can't even compete with. But previous to that, just like amazing people just putting stuff out there. And how do you even like find the encouragement in yourself to, put pen to paper or to go down that road to build or create things when you have so much visual stimuli plastered in your face all the time? It's very, very difficult, I think.
I think that's one of the biggest questions in education, design education right now. And I don't have an answer to that yet. But I hear, that exact comment from students already as well. Like they think, it's not even worth to try because it has been done already and much better. And I'm never going to be as good as this or that account.
Yeah.
When I would ask them about bringing some inspiration, like some benchmarks for a certain project, certain briefing, they would always bring me an Instagram account with, 1 million or more followers. And then I would say, this is great. And then I would try to encourage them, okay, let's go down that route. It's not that difficult. You can do that as well. Oh, no, I can't. Because no, I'm never going to be as good as, and then there's this one and this one and this one, and so that's the thing.
I mean, we did face a similar kind of thing. I mean, I faced a similar kind of thing at art school. If you're studying the greats like Caravaggio or Michelangelo, Leonardo, all the greats in a certain field, like those were the people that you're exposed to through books and also being taught systems and also like methods of how to actually create stuff. And these are greats that have stood the test of time in history and, hang on the walls of the great museums of the world. And these are the people that you're looking at to try and understand, like how to understand skin tones, lighting, composition, all of these things. So, I think even then, there's still this kind of a barrier that you have to get over of, where do I want to get to? Where do I aspire to get to when you're kind of, it's not the level of today, but those things are still in front of you.
Yeah, they were there.
They
Maybe
were there,
a bit more manageable for, and also not at this quantity, not like 24 hours a day at your fingertips.
Yeah.
But yeah, true. Of course, there's always going to be that kind of things that you think are unachievable, right?
Yeah. And I also think like we are as creatives by nature self-doubters, and the magic comes and greatness comes out of self-deprecation, self-doubt, like not feeling connected, not feeling good enough. Like the best albums that were ever written were not happy albums. They were ones that were coming out of depressive situations in history or breakup songs or, things that like really hurt. That's where the great comes out. So I think as creatives, we're always going to have that self-doubt and we have to kind of find our way out of that. It's just today, I think there's even more of it and you have more of kind of like social doubt and social angst because of the way that we're exposed to media. And I think that's also a very difficult place to kind of find yourself, I think, as a young creative. Yeah, I mean, I suppose that leads onto my next question, which is somehow how do we frame that, and how have you managed to frame it as you, as Alex? I know you have Kuttin Edge, which is your kind of stage name, as it were, and also Crunch Time. And I've always seen Crunch Time as like the hub. For
the umbrella, yeah.
Yeah, it's like
it became more or less the umbrella, right?
So the creative playground, that's the space, yeah. and Kuttin Edge is the artist. And how have you managed to kind of build like an identity almost, I suppose, like a personal brand into those ideas that you try and kind of perpetuate through Crunch Time?
I think it originates back to the graffiti days, where it's about writing your name and becoming known for a certain style and for a certain name, and also to my marketing studying. So I was always, I think, fascinated by brands or having a name, so to say, and also, of course, the visual aspect of it, having a logo was always nice. I had some other kind of little brands before Crunch Time as well, like Trackdonald's, for instance.
Trackdonald's?
Yeah, it was.
There's a graffiti name, right?
Yeah, no, it was my label, like a digital record label.
Ah, right. Okay. I think
In the
tracks is
noughties.
in train tracks, like spray.
True, there's also a connection there, probably. Yeah,
Oh.
I mean, and I don't know. I decided to use Crunch Time only later on, like when I got self-employed, because it felt natural, and I don't wanted to create it and just another brand, another name. I already had that. It came originally from my radio show, Crunch Time Radio, which was in the 90s and noughties, and I always tried to keep that name, kept the domain, and then I said, okay, let's use it for everything. Let's have Crunch Time Design and Crunch Time Consulting, Crunch Time Class at university. So it became that umbrella. And, I still like that name. I like let's say, the meaning behind it. I like the letters in it.
And I mean, as a brand, like, how has it helped you to personify your ideas, as an artist? Because you've created Crunch Time as a house, and Kuttin Edge is, the character that goes and plays in that house. Was that kind of like a force field for you, like a safe place somehow?
Yeah, I never looked at it that way, but it makes sense. I mean, Kuttin Edge is more or less the DJ name, and now producer name, you could say as well, and nothing more than that. Crunch Time is more of the house, the umbrella. I'm not too sure if it really helped me just yet, but I will use it from now on for sure. I mean, nowadays it's super tough to establish something like a brand or a name, right? So it only makes sense to keep it. I might start a record label soon, so you can tell it's gonna be probably Crunch Time Records then.
Yeah.
It only makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's also confusing. I think it's not necessarily helping me as much. It confuses a lot of people because some of them might know me from Crunch Time Radio, and then it would be confused that there's also a Crunch Time Class and vice versa. So some clients especially would never really understand why there is that one name for so much different things.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it feels like, okay, that's now established. I'm happy with it. I like it. Why not keep it? Why not use it for everything?
I think that's the point to this conversation, right? In a way, it should be on your terms and your decisions, and building a personal brand or an identity around what you believe in is your own journey, and not to necessarily worry about where you're going. We hear this all the time. It's not about the destination, but it's about the journey. And I think you're still on that journey, and you're
very much, yeah,
quite happy to be on that journey. And even at our age and at the length of time that we've been in the industry, we still have imposter syndrome on a daily basis, and we're still trying to kind of figure things out and see where we get to. Yeah, as always, Alex, I think there was some absolute gold in that conversation, and I hope whoever's watching or listening to this finds a little bit of themselves or a little bit of inspiration there for where they're heading. So I'd just like to say thank you very much.
Thank you, Paul.
Yet
Thanks
again,
for having me, guys.
Yet again for being here.
Always
I
nice.
hope we can do this again. We said last time that
100%.
we'd make it happen,
Absolutely.
and we did. There's many, many more topics that we can talk about. So it's always a pleasure having you here. So I'd just like to say thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Cool.